Story 1. Cognitive disorders can impact an individual's ability to function effectively. This individual is not living in poor conditions and neglecting responsibilities due to laziness. Maintaining that lifestyle requires significant effort. Refusing to provide assistance will not encourage them to become self-sufficient, as otherwise they would already be managing on their own. Some individuals struggle with multi-step tasks or have difficulty following routines without considerable support. Society often treats this as a moral issue. Story 2. Critical thinking. Most people believe that critical thinking simply means thinking deeply about a topic. However, it is actually a lost skill. Story 3. The human immune system cannot be boosted by eating specific foods. It is not a simple machine. Many people suffer from overactive immune systems, leading to autoimmune diseases. This is not desirable. Story 4. Overtime tax rate. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, "Oh, I don't work overtime. They just take more in taxes." I've given up trying to explain. Story 5. Bees are in decline, and honeybees can be invasive in the United States, outcompeting native bees. It is important to focus on our native wild bee populations. Story 6. I know I will get downvoted, and that's fine, but I do not understand how he continues to get away with what he does. I need someone to explain it to me as if I am a 5-year-old child. I didn't really expect to get downvoted for mentioning him. I figured it was more about bringing politics into the conversation. But what I genuinely don't get is how no one is stepping up to stop him from talking about deporting American citizens. How is that even legal? Also, how are we just casually entertaining the idea of someone donating a jet to him? And why is it okay for a former president to post a picture of himself as the Pope? I know this list of concerns is kind of all over the place, but I hope someone understands what I'm trying to say. I'm not claiming to be the smartest person, so I'd really appreciate it if someone could explain how this is allowed or why it isn't being seriously challenged. Story 7. Everyone acts as though they can understand you and what you are going through, but nobody truly does. It's only yourself. Story 8. The economy in general. Most people do not understand how it works since the only economics class anyone takes in school teaches a 1930s understanding of the idea that it is all based on supply and demand. Story 9. Basic household budgeting. Everyone thinks that tracking their money is budgeting, when in fact they are just living paycheck to paycheck in an organized manner. Story 10. How to make friends. I feel like everyone stumbles into most of their friendships instead of actively trying to make them. Story 11. Your thoughts and feelings are sealed off from the rest of the world. You may try to explain how you feel, but only you truly understand yourself. You can only confirm your own consciousness, not anyone else's. Story 12. Wine. I can navigate a tasting, but the intricacies of winemaking, fermentation, yeast, terroir, varietals, and barrel aging are vast. I've worked in the industry for years, but I never feel like an expert. Story 13. Mental illness is often misunderstood. It is not simply, I can blink on time with this TikTok, I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or I wash my hands all the time, I'm so obsessive compulsive disorder. Social media has led some to believe they are experts on mental health because of a single video they watched. Story 14. Debate. People on the internet often misuse terms like straw man and fallacy, discussing concepts such as not proving negatives as if they had only just learned these terms a week earlier from the same website they are arguing on. Story 15. Artificial intelligence is prevalent in the news and marketed on every product because it sounds technological and intelligent. However, few people actually understand its fundamental concepts such as inference, training, neural networks, datasets, and deep learning. Story 16. Freedom of speech means that every opinion is free, including yours, mine, and anyone else's. The idea is that even the opinions I despise are also protected. Story 17. The cause of the seasons on Earth is axial tilt. I was part of a homeschooling group and had to listen to several parents confidently getting it wrong. Axial tilt, it's axial tilt, people. Story 18. Their own company data. I have spent countless hours extracting information from company systems as a consultant for mid to senior executives, and the number of times I have proven their assumptions about their business models wrong is alarmingly high. It is the human condition. If things look good, they want to take credit, but if things look bad, they want to blame someone else or sweep it under the rug long enough until they get promoted and it becomes someone else's problem. Story 19. Transportation planning. People believe that congestion and long commutes can be alleviated by adding more lanes instead of investing in public transportation. Story 20. Here in the Netherlands, everyone feels proud to put their empty plastic water bottles in to be recycled. This means they are decontaminated, melted down, washed, and processed to become recycled plastic. In Italy, they use glass water bottles, which are sterilized and then refilled. This is also recycling, but it is simpler, more affordable, and better for the environment. Story 21. Most people are generally uninformed about politics. On many issues, individuals cannot answer basic questions about how things currently work, yet there is widespread agreement that change is necessary, sometimes drastically so. While there are instances where details may not matter or issues might be entirely ideological, political issues are often complex. Therefore, it should be more acceptable to refrain from having an opinion if one is uninformed. Story 22. I am in the middle stage of recovering from a lifelong dissociative post-traumatic stress disorder due to childhood abuse, and I am under observation. I have experienced combat trauma, and I identify as transgender. I can now recognize my post-traumatic stress disorder, which has been verified by doctors, and it affects my perception of reality. I often wonder how many people are not truly themselves, or if there are only a few others like me who also experience post-traumatic stress disorder. I notice the symptoms in many people around me. Story 23. I don't understand the nuances of American politics. However, based on the discussions around me and the little I observe of him, Trump seems like a far cry from an ideal president. Then how did he get elected twice? Story 24. Weight gain is not solely based on how much food one eats, what kind of food is consumed, or the amount of exercise performed. Numerous medical factors can contribute to weight gain, and genetics also play a significant role. When people see an overweight individual, they may mistakenly assume that the person is lazy and does not exercise, but this stereotype often does not reflect the reality of their situation. Story 25. Nutrition. People often believe whatever a heavily filtered and enhanced influencer shares on social media is actual science. Nutritionists are not the same as registered dietitians. One must complete rigorous education, internships, supervision, and extensive licensing requirements to earn their title. The other can simply label themselves and offer poor advice while promoting ineffective products, profiting from the ignorance and desperation of those misled by diet culture into thinking there's something wrong with them. Story 26. Anything related to geopolitics and diplomacy is complex. People often pretend to understand it and believe they are experts. They watch a short news segment or read an article and assume they know how to easily and quickly resolve complicated issues, both broad and narrow, such as disputed borders, trade agreements, poverty, and armed conflicts. Story 27. Lose and loose. I couldn't care less. Do you mind doing this for me? The other person responds, yes, and proceeds to do what is requested. Story 28. How to read your intuition or gut feeling. Your intuition is designed to protect you. It is not always right. It is just always safe. Story 29. Philosophy is complex, and it is surprising how some people believe they can simplify the works of Immanuel Kant or Aristotle based on introductory texts or basic philosophy courses. It is even more concerning when individuals read a basic secondary source on Soren Kierkegaard or Arthur Schopenhauer and feel confident enough in their understanding to engage in discussions about those philosophies. To truly grasp what Schopenhauer was conveying, one must first have a deep understanding of Kant's ideas, and it would also be beneficial to have a comprehensive understanding of Aristotle's philosophy. I understand that not everyone has the time to delve into philosophy, but it is perfectly acceptable to acknowledge when you do not fully understand someone's perspective. Story 30. Morals are subjective beliefs shaped by religious principles or personal convictions, each containing inherent flaws. For instance, many people adhere to concepts of heaven and hell, but if a deity creates everyone, is it morally justified to condemn them to eternal punishment? Additionally, How do we judge individuals who suffer from mental disorders that influence their behavior? The modern world itself has been built on the suffering and loss of countless lives. The concept of moral philosophy becomes challenging and abstract when contrasted with the complexities of the real world, leading many to adopt a moral framework uncritically, often unaware of its vulnerabilities. For example, prioritizing human growth can lead to justifying harmful actions for the sake of progress. If one prioritizes human happiness, this could permit cruelty towards non-human beings. Conversely, if one seeks happiness for all creatures, self-defense against predators might be unallowable, forcing a reliance on a plant-based diet, which was not sustainable for early humans. I believe morals are not fixed. They evolve alongside humanity. Initially, they serve the interests of one's own social group. Over time, as societies expand, governance systems and alliances form, requiring a broader perspective. Eventually, priorities may shift toward unity among nations and the development of alternative food sources, such as plant-based or 3D printed offerings. As humanity progresses and invests more effort into improving the world, a more harmonious environment could lead to greater efficiency. Currently, society is hindered by personal greed and flawed governance systems. A potential path forward may involve waiting for advanced artificial intelligence to assume control of global governance, fostering a more progressive and unified societal evolution. While fears of AI uprisings abound, a rational perspective suggests that without an objective governance system, humanity risks perpetual poverty due to personal biases and motives. Story 31. Nutrition and its relation to weight, muscle, fat gain, and loss is a complex subject that is often misrepresented. While there are certain aspects that the scientific community generally agrees upon, such as the principle of caloric intake versus expenditure, these topics are still debated by individuals who may lack a proper understanding. Many speak with authority on subjects they do not fully comprehend. Story 32. Crime statistics are often conflated with other categories, or they are simply incorrect. There is a lack of curiosity about the data, as many do not take the extra step to examine the actual headcounts instead of relying solely on percentages. Story 33. Emotional neglect occurs even when physical needs are met. Similarly, financial manipulation can make you believe that you cannot survive without certain individuals. Story 34. I am surprised how few people working in the information technology sector genuinely understand how computers work from a physics-based perspective. Story 35. A significant portion of the world's population pretends to understand what happens after death. Story 36. Inflation. Inflation is often just someone trying to make more money somewhere in the process. It is not a natural phenomenon. It is mostly driven by greed. It does not have to continuously rise. It can decrease if efficiencies improve. We are led to believe that inflation is normal and that it is a natural occurrence that always exists. For a product to become more expensive, something must change. There has to be increased scarcity, more effort to process, or a similar factor. There must be more work to achieve the same outcome. But what if nothing changes? What if we improve the process and make it easier? What is inflation when changes occur but prices still rise? In that case, someone in the supply chain is simply taking more profit and subsequently accounting for a cost increase. Rising prices are always tied to specific changes. Inflation is not abstract. It is very particular and detailed. It is complex only because of the intricacies involved in every step of the process. Most of my career has involved working specifically with product costs. Every component is deliberate. Every price change has specific drivers. I can explain to the penny why the price of product X we manufacture increased by 30%. I can detail every price change of product X over the last decade. There is no arbitrary 2.5% annual increase. Specific events occur each year, and each one affects the selling price, whether it goes up or down. Yes, we do lower prices when cost elements allow it. Inflation is a matter of detail. This complexity is why few fully understand it. You cannot really grasp it unless you work with these details constantly. Story 37. Logic in general is fascinating. It is also interesting how people perceive their own emotions. It's puzzling to me that individuals equate going to therapy with genuinely understanding their thoughts and feelings. Story 38. Energy is subject to many misinformed opinions regarding fossil fuels and renewable energy. Story 39. Tariffs, pollution, nuclear power, education, pandemics, law enforcement, socialism, and capitalism are the main topics in the news cycle, where everyone suddenly seems to know how to fix the issues at hand. Story 40. Maybe not everyone, but the First Amendment applies to most of the Constitution. We lack civics education in the United States. Story 41. Mathematics. Decades of standardized testing have encouraged teachers to have students memorize formulas and steps to arrive at answers. However, there is often a lack of depth in most people's understanding of how the numbers relate to one another and why a formula or certain steps lead to the correct answer. It may not be entirely accurate to say that almost nobody truly understands complicated mathematics with any depth. However, I feel that the majority of individuals who believe they are good at math, simply because they consistently received A's in school, may not be able to explain the reasoning behind their answers. Many of them were simply good at memorizing steps. Story 42. Capitalism and communism are often subjects of strong opinions, yet many people lack a clear understanding of their true meanings. Story 43. In my town, we are not allowed to recycle glass in our bins, so it must be taken to the bottle bank at the supermarket and sorted into clear, green, and brown bottles. Then, the emptying truck comes along and collects them all in the same skip, which is a waste of time. Story 44. Quantum physics. We all nod in agreement, thinking, ah yes, spooky action at a distance. But in reality, we're envisioning Schrödinger's cat based solely on feelings. Story 45. Most people don't understand that when you talk to anyone at the call center, we do not concern ourselves with your attitude. We have to sit here for 5 to 6 more hours and handle difficult situations. You need our help, so we have to assist you. Sometimes, if we become frustrated with you, we might place you on mute and express our feelings. Keep this in mind. If the line is very silent or you are on hold for a long time, we are likely discussing our frustrations about the situation with our colleagues. Story 46. Inflation and economics. Even economists do not seem to grasp it, as their predictions have usually been incorrect. In 2009, quantitative easing and an extremely modest recovery package did not benefit regular people. This will cause hyperinflation. Incorrect. The peak of inflation during COVID-19 reached around 10%. This is all because regular people received a couple $1,000s. Incorrect. Academic studies using mathematical analysis showed that over half of the 10% inflation was caused by corporate greed. If over 5% was caused by greed, and half of the remaining half was attributed to supply chain issues, it suggests that we can print and spend trillions without significant impact on inflation. I do not claim to be an expert. I barely graduated high school. However, I was vocal about these observations in real time, influenced by experience and some ideology. The most frustrating part is when someone unqualified claims, "This is all because big government spent money." Please be quiet. You do not understand the complexities and have never had an original thought in your life. Story 47. The Constitution of the United States of America. Please read the Federalist Papers, as they explain the actual intent of the founders. Then read the Constitution. It will make much more sense that way. Story 48. People's ignorance about how income taxes work is a major pet peeve of mine. When individuals brag about receiving a large refund, they are simply demonstrating their lack of understanding. The same applies to the taxation of income. The United States employs a progressive tax system, and it astounds me how misinformed people can be about its functioning. Story 49. The Israel-Palestine War. Almost everyone is talking about it, yet very few truly understand it. Story 50. Paleontology is the study of past life through fossils, which covers over 3.4 billion years. Dinosaurs were among the many creatures that lived for a few million years. Pterosaurs are not flying dinosaurs. They belong to a different group that includes dinosaurs. Plesiosaurs are not swimming dinosaurs, and their skull types are not similar to those of dinosaurs. Paleontology does not state that humans evolved from monkeys or apes. Apes, monkeys, and hominids are all separate taxa with a common ancestry if traced back far enough. There is no top of evolution. This concept does not exist, and that is not how phylogeny works. While there are crown groups, there is no single best or highest form of evolution. As for collecting arrowheads, that falls under archaeology. Regarding Jurassic Park and its related media, I do not have the time or patience to discuss it further. Story 51. That poor people are truly in need. Not the misconception of tiny homes that I see discussed, but utilizing a deceased family member's child to solicit money. Story 52. Nuclear weapons deterrence theory, known as mutually assured destruction, elicits diverse opinions. However, there is a significant gap between simply having an opinion and being informed on the subject. Protesting against nuclear weapons' moral implications will not make them disappear. Story 53. Speaking for myself, I do not understand many people and nearly everything in the world around me. Story 54. Why do I need to file my income tax when the government knows exactly how much money I made and can imprison me if I make a mistake? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.